Welcome back, everybody. Episode number 11 now of the Breaking ROX podcast. We've got our general manager beside us here, Kelvin. And obviously, welcome to you too, Jake.
Thank you.
The co-host.
Thank you, Kelvin.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, KD. It's exciting. Why don't you kick things off and introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background. Obviously, you've been with us a little while. Give us and the viewers a bit of a background of your journey here at Bentech so far.
Yeah, thanks, Reese. Thanks, Jakey. Yeah, pretty exciting to be here. So background and journey, it's it's not really that exciting, quite frankly. I've been here for 22 years now, and I don't know, it's probably, it's a pretty long time, a very long time probably and it has been my only job. I'm kind of part of the family now, seem to be part of the furniture. It was interesting because I'm not sure if this is where you want to go, but let's go down.
Go anywhere you want to go, man. When
I was in high school, obviously not hugely academic kind of guy, and at all. And my number one thing was cash on the weekends.
Yeah.
So any chance I could during the Christmas holidays, I just try to find jobs.
Yeah.
And the Jim and Paul were always known to be generous people. Used to look after like young guys. It used to be really hard work. It was very heavy and dirty work back in those days. A lot of grinding, a lot of lifting, especially with the pipe bending side of things back in those days. And they used to often get the young guys to bend up the heavy bollards for car parks and barriers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
I used to love that because it was heavy and I used to come home knackered, but they used to pay well. And so I set my sights. I set my sights on working for Jim and Paul. I think I asked them weeks on end, have you got anything for me to do?
Yeah.
I'm talking in year 10. So the first holidays I could legally start working and earning cash.
Yeah.
I was chasing Jim down.
Hustle.
He was obviously a friend of the family, and so we knew him well, and him and my old man have known each other for many years. So I was always I just chased him down. He used to just knock me back and say, no, there's nothing for you to do.
Yeah, okay.
I can imagine this 15 or 16-year-old chasing you down. Just annoying.
Yeah.
I kind of just persevered to the point where he said, finally, yeah, you know what? Come out. I'm pretty sure we got some stuff for you to do. And here I was thinking, great, I'm going to get into this. I'll be working in the factory. Well, the first thing I did was pack up calendars. So I did that for about 3 or 4 weeks straight. I think there was like 2,500 calendars to roll up and send out to clients. We used to do that. You would remember those.
We still sometimes
Even
do
I've
it.
had that job before. That's a classic one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I paid you to do my half.
Yeah, we started doing it together, and then you said, "Look, I'll pay you like $200 to just for you to do the rest of this."
So that was like a personal deal.
Yeah.
It's a frustrating job.
Yeah.
But I thought I kind of better do the calendars and do them well. And I thought, well, it's only 4 weeks or whatever it was, or 3 or 4 weeks. I'm sure once I'm in for good.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, here I am, And so they started me on very basically just cutting pipe. Just all I did was cut pipe because back in those days, all we were doing was pipe bending and rolling.
Yeah.
So there was just thousands and thousands of cuts, and we just used to do a lot of work for furniture manufacturers before a lot of that work went offshore, and then we used to do a lot of work for the likes of people like Solar Heart, that built the hot water systems.
Yeah.
Thousands upon thousands of tiny copper tubes, and so I was the one on the cold saw. And then eventually I just kind of, over the years, during holidays, I'm talking still. There was year 11 and year 12, and I never thought it was pretty silly of me, but I never thought to kind of to chase after school studies or higher education. At all. I just was following the dollars.
Just hustling for the cash.
I really was just hustling, and I just thought, if I can get out there and just work it, and I even I'm not sure if we're going to keep this in there because it's not a great influence on young guys. We're trying to encourage to re-educate themselves and.
It just depends on which way you want to go. Education's not for everybody. I think
of course it's not. But I still think that you should be, in hindsight now. I still think you should be disciplined to see through, whatever you set yourself out. So year 12, I'm talking about the end of year 12 when I had what we called, what's the ATARs? Back then,
TEE or whatever.
TEE was back then, and I actually skipped a couple of TEE exams just to get back to work. Pretty bad. And so we might not want to keep that on there because it's not doesn't give a very.
I think
good,
clearly it's where like I think like education isn't like binary. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're following books might be your thing, but like you're investing your time into learning a craft. That's enabled you to become the GM of Bentech. Like,
yeah,
I think that's pretty good.
That's a gracious way to put it. But yeah, thank you. But
that's the way. Well, that's the truth. That's the way it is.
So there it was, and I remember, interestingly, it's kind of a funny story because I've never actually been accepted for a job at Bentech, and this is kind of something that I like to have a laugh with Jim and Paul about, because I remember I was getting towards my, I was probably first couple of weeks of holidays in year 12, and I was working away, and I was kind of prepping myself for when I left school. And I said to Jim, hey Jim, I'm going to be leaving school in whatever it was, September, October. And he said, I said, is there any chance I could have a job after I left school? And Jim just said flat no.
Yeah, okay.
I remember I was standing at a bender, and I was one of the old Italian benders, and I was pumping away doing a job for a company that did the furniture manufacturing. And he, often, as Jim always does still today, he just wanders around and talks.
Yeah,
I was talking to him, and at this moment when I asked him, he just said no. He goes, no, I don't think that'll work. And I was like, man. And I was just thinking, I kind of put all my eggs in one basket, and I'd also kind of, I hadn't been like academically, I hadn't chased anything that was, I hadn't done any accounting at school or anything like that. So there wasn't too much of the professional kind of pathway that I could have chased. And I remember just thinking, heck, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Anyway, he never officially said yes, and he said, I might have to talk to Paul, but I just don't think it's going to work out. Still to this day, he hasn't come back to me and said, yes, you've got the job.
You've just been here ever since.
I've
just kept rocking
literally
up.
been here ever since. And I said something to Jim the other day, and he goes, well, you're just on the world's longest probation, aren't you? So,
That's a gold story. That's hilarious.
So
That's funny.
here I am still, and bending I did, and then we, I'm not sure if we're going down the right track. And
Absolutely, mate.
It was great. I must admit, the physical side of it kept me strong, and I remember that we used to work really, really long hours because we were paid by the hour.
Yeah.
We used to try and see how long we could work. Wasn't that safe, of course, back in those days. And if we could start at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and work through to 3 or 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that was a sign of manhood back in those days.
Yeah.
And of course, you took home the bacon at the end of the week. So I don't know. There's probably not a great
That's good.
That's awesome.
I think it is. I think it's good to see that. It's good it's even good for us to understand that first journey. I mean, Alan's been here longer than you, has he? So Alan was around at this time?
Yeah, he was around at this time, and Alan was my boss back then.
Yeah,
and he taught me everything I knew about pipe bending. And pipe bending was the interesting thing about it is pipe bending. There's no kind of trade school or anything you can do around pipe bending. So it becomes it's almost like a skill that you just got to learn from other people.
Yeah.
You teach yourself, and then you get better and better. And when I remember when people used to ask me, "So what do you do?" and I say, "I'm a pipe bender. I run the mandrel pipe bending machines," which back in those days they were a very expensive machine, so not everybody had them. Bentech would have been first and foremost in Western Australia, and probably one of the top 3 in Australia, without a doubt.
Yep.
Wow.
And I remember people saying, so what did you do in the way of learning or after school studies or trade school or whatever it was? And there was nothing I could say. I just know it's just on the job training.
Just learn it.
Just learned it. But it was good. It was very satisfying. And still today, it kind of breeds this really weird kind of this instinct in you, because whenever you don't realise it, and Jim often tells me he does the same thing too, but whenever you're walking past a handrail, and you've seen that it's been bent by a mandrel bender, you always just instinctively kind of just run your hands underneath it, because if you could get a bend, especially in, say, thin wall stainless steel or anything like that, if you could get a bend that was smooth without any wrinkles, that was a successful bend.
Yeah, rightio. So you're still checking for that now?
And you just don't even think about it. You just always just kind of run your hands, and then sometimes you'll pick up like this lump and you go, oh yeah, I know exactly what they didn't do there.
Yeah, okay.
And it's very, very low level stuff, but it's kind of funny how the instinct kind of still is pretty strong. And I just look at a lot of heat exchangers and say even technical pipe bending and that. And you always just look at a bend and you can, I can see that's a good bend. The person whoever's done it has set up the machine right, and there you go.
That's a real good start.
Yeah.
I think that's really good. It's really good insight into like back in those days. What was like? How much has Jim and Paul changed in that time?
Yeah, it's interesting. Jim and Paul haven't changed a lot. Paul, obviously the quieter, with all respect, the quieter, more reserved.
Yeah.
Jim, the more kind of outgoing and spontaneous.
Yeah.
And it was exactly the same back then.
Yeah. Okay. I've often wondered if it's kind of like crescendoed as time's gone on, as he's gotten more like, because Jim just loves getting amongst it, getting amongst the team.
That's the interesting thing about it. You often see, and we'll work out whether we put this in there, but you often see families that go into business together in, you might say, the second generation. So I worked for Jim and Paul's father for just literally 3 months before he handed over the business to the boys, and then I kind of worked for the boys. But their father, Mr. Eric, he came to work for years and years and years after that. He just happened to be semi-retired, but keeping himself occupied. Very, very, very intelligent guy. But Jim and Paul, I often thought as time would go on and we would move into, say, the third generation, which is where we are now in the family business, I would see them maybe split up the businesses, and you see that a lot in the business world, huge amount.
Yeah.
But with Jim and Paul, they complement each other so well that it's like it'll never. I don't think it'll ever happen.
No, I could never imagine Jim and Paul not being a unit working together. They are very much like a bit of a yin and yang type style.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And they approach things differently, but they both kind of have the same level of like diligence and finger on the pulse. You know what I mean? Just in different ways. Yeah,
in different ways. And that's the success, I think, behind the whole organisation is you've just got two people that are, quite frankly, somewhat polar opposite to each other, but are blood relations. So you've kind of just it's a pretty good combo.
Yeah, it works. When you got those complementary ways of going about things, it always works a lot better. It's just like the individuality of it. Imagine if we had 50 me's walking around this place. It would be.
Yeah, I mean, there'd be a lot of podcasts going on. Yeah. There'd be 50 different podcasts going on.
There'd be plenty of fresh ideas. It might be good in some ways, but I think it would probably. We'd definitely annoy each other.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. We would. Yeah, I'm sure we would. No, it's great. So it's been a journey, a great journey.
And you started in that kind of bending and rolling, learning the ropes there. When was your first? I guess we're probably fast forwarding a little bit. When was your first site visit?
My first site visit. This is an interesting one because early days of the mining boom, and I'd say this would be, what we would call the original mining boom, when obviously China aggressively increased their growth as a nation, which then flowed through to the mining iron ore industry, and we saw huge growth in Rio Tinto and BHP building new mines.
Yep.
It obviously came onto our radar, and it was I remember having a conversation with Jim, and we were only just purely still at those stages, pipe benders and rollers, very, very low level, almost very, very much a ground cover industry. We never rose above even offering secondary secondary services to people that were getting pipe bending and rolling.
Yeah.
And I was one Christmas, obviously, we knock off every Christmas for a couple of weeks there, and there's that last Friday. And of course, the Fridays we have today are vastly different to what we had back then. There was only kind of 25 of us, and I remember at lunchtime everybody would, most of the factory workers would knock off. By that stage, I was in the office, and I only got into the office by breaking my leg in a surfing accident.
Yeah, okay.
And at the beach, just snapped my my ankle straight through. And during so-called recovery, the boy said, "Come in the office and start,
upstairs."
come and do something.
Yeah, learning a bit of new stuff.
Yeah, new stuff. So and then I kind of got into some quoting and so on and so forth, and a bit of sales type work, which is still fairly kind of immature and preliminary back in that stage. And I remember a gentleman walked in the door late Thursday afternoon, just before the Friday knockoff, I think, and he wanted some pipe bedding for his boat, and I remember saying to him, and he wanted it obviously before shutdown at Christmas, and as you can imagine, that's it can be quite a bit of a hassle.
Yeah, for sure. If you're in holiday mode.
If you're in holiday mode.
Yeah.
Anyway, he passed me his card. Now this is a confession because it's bad. I should have just been customer centric and customer focused. But he passed me his card, and we might have to cut this out, by the way. But I'm going to tell you the story.
I think it's all right.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm not sure what our clients are going to think.
Yeah.
But he was from Pilbara, and I'm thinking, oh, here's an opportunity. Bad, pretty bad. Shouldn't have mattered who it was, but I remember talking to him and we negotiated getting that boat, aluminium boat bar bending done, whatever it was for his boat, just in turn that he would kind of serve as a little bit of a SME.
Yeah, okay.
To help us get into the mining industry. He worked at Paraburdoo.
Yeah.
And Paraburdoo is a large kind of mining, iron ore complex back in those days. I mean, it still is now, but back then it was probably one of the, there was the Paraburdoo, Tom Price region, and that was just that was a big area. And very interestingly, I remember it came from that was my first site trip with Jim, and it was really basic. And I mean, compared to how prepared we were back then to what we. Prepared we are today.
Compared to then, yeah.
I mean, we might have taken a camera and a tape measure and maybe this shabby lined pad or something.
Yeah.
There was no scanners, no laser measuring gear. I think we borrowed all of our safety gear off them when we rocked up. We might have had boots because that's what we wore in the factory anyway, but hard hats and all that kind of gear.
How long ago was this, by the way?
That would have been 2004.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah, 2004. Yeah.
What were you going there expecting to?
This is the thing. We had a very basic kind of company profile, and I guess we just thought we could maybe pick up some pipe bending type work, and then obviously add some welding product styles to it. And back in those days, because the mining boom ramped up so much and Australian industry didn't follow quick enough or as quickly as it should have done, there was work to be taken to service their growth.
Yep.
And we won some really good jobs that we successfully completed within months.
Yeah.
We got ourselves a vendor number very, very quickly, early days. And I think one of our first jobs, which wasn't really even a pipe bending job, it was just a fabrication engineering job. We replaced we fabricated up a heap of flooring for replacement of a screen house. And that was a really big job. I remember going back after night, after you go home from work and just kind of go home to the family and have a shower and a shave and tea, and then back to work and working through to work through to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and then just to get the job out. That was fun.
That was for that job.
Just for that job. It was brilliant. It was
that would
good.
be crazy.
It was good fun. I mean, we were a lot younger then, and
2004. That's just so long ago.
Yeah, it is a long time ago.
20 years ago.
20 years ago. Yeah, it is. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's insane. And then how long in between like sort of those early site trips until we started foraying into like access, that access range?
Yeah, that was really interesting. I remember that first project. It was. I'm just trying to think of the site. Both. It was Rio Tinto.
Yeah.
Absolutely certain it was Rio Tinto. And they had a huge number of access platforms that needed repairing and recertification. Prior to that, we were doing design and engineering and certification on just simple work stands, so load-bearing work stands.
Yep.
So all steel. You'd have a truck that needed to to be raised off the ground, and they would sit it on 50-ton works there, and so on and so forth. Very, very kind of basic stuff. So we were engaging engineering companies, third-party engineers, to help us and kind of offer that service. The first foray, you might say, into aluminium platforms was exactly that question: could you repair either platforms for us? And having the conversation and getting some learnings from the engineering side of things, we realised that we could reverse engineer.
Yep.
So I think the interesting thing about what that was is we got a truckload. I remember just a truckload of these pretty mangled aluminium work platforms made by various people all around the place, rocked up, and we worked our way through them, recertifying them. Every time we recertified, obviously gave us a set of drawings, and from that we were able to improve and then offer, knowing what they were for, started offering that out to other mine sites. So that was the first of the aluminium platform side of things. But it came originally from recertification of originally made equipment. So,
Yeah, okay.
Equipment.
That was the first kind of dipping our toes in that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
wow.
it just kind of grew from there. Yeah.
That's insane, eh? It's
That's
insane
really
to learn some of that history. Is like, it's really cool to hear. I mean, obviously, I've been here for 6 years now, and so much as I can talk about similar things that you're talking about in my time. But we're going back now. So, I mean, I was in year 8 in 2004.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like just a wee lad when we started doing the. I even had hair.
Yeah,
back then. Like that's how long ago it was.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That is a long time. Hang on. Now you're saying that,
Let's
I'm
get
thinking-
into primary school, actually. No, that's cool to hear that. That's really awesome.
Yeah, no, it was good, and it just kind of grew from there. It's about I guess we realised that there, as we came to that, what we do best is making maintenance on site safe, efficient, and easy.
Yeah.
And that's what we realised we were doing. We just every single thing we touched either had to do something to do with safety or maintenance, or we're improving efficiency.
How long? So then, obviously, time and fast forwarding a little bit more, you became the sales manager, and the team started growing.
Yeah.
What do you? What can you? What do you like? How do you look back on that time, as a sales manager managing a group of salespeople?
Well, that's interesting, because if I could have my time again, we should have increased the size of our consulting sales team, whatever you want to call them, way earlier. I mean, for many years there, it kind of, I would say, 3 to 4 years of exceptional, economic growth. We only had 1 to 2, if best, 2.5 salespeople. And that kind of ebbed and flowed as someone might have left, and then another person came on. If we'd been a bit bolder in those days and recruited aggressively, like we do today,
Like we have now,
yeah. I've got no doubt we'd be a significantly different looking company. So yeah, and of course the whole concept of sales management and even silos and people and team leaders and that was, in the very early days, there was just we never thought about that. It was Jim and Paul, and they were the bosses, and they made pretty well every decision as they do in small organisations. In hindsight, probably siloing out and identifying those hierarchies, those right hierarchies. Too much hierarchy in a business can also stifle growth, but getting that right earlier on probably would have been a better thing too. And of course, I'd never took the role seriously enough, I don't think. Early days, the whole concept of sales manager was just something you called somebody so you could put it on a business card or whatever. Until you realise that that is an extremely important role.
Definitely,
absolutely,
and pivotal to business growth. But we realised that you can't grow a business without, number one, without people, but if you want to grow revenue, you have to add sales and marketing personnel.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we kind of, I guess, I look back to when I started back in the Maddington days.
Yeah.
And there was only you, Lucho, and Andrew started at the exact same time as me. Going back small time. I remember when I was at uni helping a mate, because I'd graduated. I was at uni helping a mate with something, and Jim called me through Lynette. Remember
Yes,
Lynette?
yes.
Called me and then came in for an interview straight away, and then I followed him up a couple of times because I was super keen. And he was eventually like, yeah. Then I eventually spoke to him on a Friday. He was like, yeah, start Monday, and that was the last week before. That was 2017, the last week of 2017. And then I started pretty much straight away. And the team. I look back at the team was tiny back then. Even then,
I think Andrew would have started that year as well, wouldn't he?
yeah, he did. He started. Well, I kind of came in for those last few days of 2017, and then started officially properly in January 2018. And Andrew kind of started the exact same time.
Yeah.
And then we've just exploded over those last kind of 6 years, especially from a people point of view. We've got such a big sales consulting team now.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got a full blown marketing team now. Every team is like really structured and strong, and we've got really good people. And some people have come and gone, but on the most part, they've always stayed.
The core's there, isn't it?
Yeah, the core group's still there.
Yeah.
No, that's really awesome, mate. It's really good to hear some of these like stories, especially when you start saying like from 2004. It's like, man, that's and sort of that early days into like that gentleman that came through the door that wanted something done for his boat and what that turned into. It's very kind of like, it's like the butterfly effect, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
how that initial decision was made to help that guy out late on a Friday arvo. So many business stories are like that, I feel.
Yep.
I agree, absolutely. And look, to anybody who is listening in, wanting to get some value, you just, out of any of that story, the reality is you have no idea who you're dealing with a lot of the time. And, if you want to get ahead in life, you just help other people get ahead.
100%.
I mean, that's age-old wisdom. And, it's what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
And I think it was a real lesson to me. I was green as anything, and also impatient and immature.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to knock off.
Yeah, he wanted to head home.
And we fall into that trap regularly. But
we're all just humans at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We've all still got those basic needs of relaxation.
Yeah, for sure. But customer service, I mean, the customer is you very, very quickly realise as you move into an organisation, or as you might say, you progress hopefully professionally in an organisation of our size now, the customer is king.
Very much so.
They are the real boss.
Yeah, they are.
They have the ability to fire every single person in your organisation.
100%. Without them, none of us have got anything to do.
Absolutely.
That's it.
I've even like had my own the lessons with that, not knowing who people are. Like the chat has always been a funny one for me. Like I've had some
online chat.
Online chats.
Yes.
It obviously doesn't surprise me anymore, but like I've always kind of stayed, and I know Jake does too, logged in on our phones. And I've had some chats come through. I remember the first time it happened to me, like a chat came through at like 2 a.m. or something. And that sound it makes, like it makes this kooky noise like through your phone. And like I woke up and I was like, at the time I was like, who is this on the chat? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it ended up being a bloke from, I think, BHP or something on night shift.
Yeah.
And then I like dealt with the inquiry and sort of it turned into whatever it turned into. But that's very much similar to what you're saying. Like it's not just some random, like these guys are working night shift. They want some information about what you do. You kind of got to be ready to give it to them.
Yeah. And you only need to turn away somebody who might not quite. And look, I think the lesson is that you might not be able to serve them from your business point of view, and they may be in the wrong demographic. They may not be in the right profile of client. But one thing you must do is help them.
Yeah.
Like if you can't do something for them in our business, maybe it's just not really going to be practical. Find 2 or 3 other options for them and give that to them, because it's highly likely in this state you're talking to somebody who's the dad of somebody on some mine site somewhere.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
And they only need to get around the barbecue and go, you know what, I walked into Bentech and they just brushed me off. They weren't interested.
Yeah.
And that,
that's all it takes, especially in Australia. That's very much what we're like. It's if we don't help you, if you're not willing to help someone out, you're no good almost. You know?
So, I mean, you might not be able to serve them, but you can serve them actually. You can help them somewhere.
Absolutely.
Exactly. What about? So you go.
I was just going to say, just going back just a little bit about, so obviously one of the main pivots that we had was to go into the access and the fabrication and everything. With the replacement parts, like how did, I know we've spoke obviously on the ROX podcast, we've spoken a lot about where it's born and what we do in that area, but like what's sort of like,
how did that come about?
Yeah, how did that come about? Like with the handrails and
Oh yeah, I know exactly how that came about. That was an interesting one because we obviously were doing the mining kind of the mining safety parts, the stands and the platforms and so on and so forth. So you're kind of dealing with mining companies from underground to above ground right across the spectrum and their contractors. And there was a really good organisation, very, very professional underground mining contractor who we were dealing with. We can mention their name. I won't mention their names. They're still a very good client of ours, very good client of ROX. And they were having safety issues on their underground machines.
Yep.
I believe, with all due respect to the original equipment manufacturer, the handrailing wasn't meeting Australian standards, wasn't complying. So this gentleman, who was concerned obviously about the safety right across all of their organisations, reached out to us. And that would have been, I would say, about 2006, 2007. Yep. And he asked us to firstly quite re-engineer and upgrade and then just build handrails for the first of the CAT 2900 loaders, underground loaders.
Yeah.
That was our first machine.
Yeah.
And we basically did the CAT 2900 loader and the CAT AD55 truck. So that was the kind of, back in those days in the underground scene, that would have probably made up, and someone will debunk this, but that probably could have made up to close to 70% of the underground kind of fleet. Sure. The whole Sandvik side of things hadn't really taken off. Epiroc was definitely there. They were originally known as Atlas Copco, but they were definitely there in the truck side of things, but CAT really had a real grip in the market. So that really helped us springboard that aftermarket side of things. And we obviously just grew, as each machines came on, we were able to build more and design more and just get really great at that. And one thing we really got good at was, number one, listening to the clients. I believe, listening to the clients' problems where, there were situations where, because the you might say the walls and look, this is the wrong wording, but the tunnels are so low. When they would turn corners, they would just, they were tearing handrails off because they were hinging too high. So we were able to, listen to their calls about, dropping those handrails right down so they hinged flat against the decks of the trucks and loaders. And then also, every kind of couple of years improving that hinging system so it was better, faster, easier, stronger.
Yep.
That was the start of the underground or the mining parts.
Yeah.
And that's grown, of course, and
Exploded, eh?
It has exploded, and of course that was just underground. And if you look at, underground's an incredible market, very, very niche, but compared to above ground or open cut mining, it's just a pup in sheer size. A big underground operation in Australia, a decent underground operation in Australia might have 10 loaders and maybe 15 trucks. Well, an operation, a decent size open cut operation will have 50 trucks.
Yeah, 100%.
Big trucks.
And they're big trucks. Yeah. So, there's just so much more going on in the open cut space.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the sheer size difference between some of the machinery is crazy. And that was quite, in my early days working for Bentech, doing some smaller site visit stuff and some filming on site. Like, the underground loaders aren't, they're not that big.
No.
Yeah.
And they're quite low, they're real low profile. And
crazy.
You could, but then when you compare that to like a 793, which the tyres are 3 meters.
3.3 meters or something.
Like you're talking about, you could put a 2900 in the back of a 793.
Yeah, you think you probably possibly
almost
quite easily could, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been crazy to see the growth of that. I mean, I've said it before, but like even just like the amount of parts we do and have brought online over the last 5 or 6 years. Like I remember the underground brochure used to be like 10 or 15 pages.
Yeah, 10 or 15 pages.
Now,
Like
what is it
4
now?
machines or something.
Couple hundred.
Yeah, it's like nearly 200 pages now.
200
So
pages, yeah.
it's so
How many machines
parts.
are we? Something like 22 or 23 machines we're now covering off on.
Oh, yeah, at least. Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We probably do at least 10 for each brand.
Yeah.
Don't we?
And different versions of each machine as well.
Yep.
We're kind of attacking all of the different.
Yeah.
yeah, the little
different
differences
versions,
between the machines, hey?
Just tiny little
Differences where they mount the fire extinguisher on one
Yeah.
and where
Yeah.
this goes on another, and
Yeah, this is what's definitely you can tell's improved so much over. I mean, since I've been here for sure, with the focus that we've had in developing the parts. So like obviously with the R&D that we've got in it, and the sales guys getting out and speaking to the people on site, and then the whole process altogether, we've now seemed to understand like replacement parts seriously well now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
do.
absolutely. Yeah.
we do because it's such a different way of marketing and selling.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
for repeatable OEM replacement parts, comparing to like a bespoke solution or something a little bit more crude, like a workbench, where it's not critical in its size and dimension.
No,
you know,
that's correct.
not in comparison to like a handrail fitting a certain.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Schematic.
absolutely. Yeah.
Like a fender having to bolt directly into the
Yeah,
OEM
exactly.
sort of.
It has to be
position.
spot
It's
on,
gotta be
otherwise
on.
it's not going to fit. And then like, so I think credit to the team and credit to the maturity of our organisation now where we've gotten to. It's been insane over the last few years. I think just that. I think I said it to you at the end of last year at Christmas. Like I feel like we're entering a real mature phase of Bentech.
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
And we've got we've got the ROX brand, and we've got Grizzly launching soon.
Yeah,
and
and it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's all just really exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, from the ROX perspective, while underground part of the ROX group is probably not going to grow a huge amount more. I think I could be wrong there as well, but the above ground section is just, I mean, that's got miles to go, miles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Especially now we're foraying into fuel tanks.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, and just the sheer like you touched on, just the sheer amount of these machines that are global.
Yeah.
Like one site might have, like you said, 50 or 60 trucks. That's just one site.
Yeah.
And when you extrapolate that over, I mean, we've got some data on some of that information.
Yeah, we do,
And
yeah.
like the amount of these machines getting around the world is just insane.
Yeah,
it's
it is.
incomprehensible sometimes. So I do agree. I think there's so much scope for growth, more product development, and like a broader reach in terms of that kind of going global. Bentech going, or ROX and Bentech and
Yeah,
Grizzly all
absolutely.
going global. I think
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
that's a big deal.
Yeah, and I mean that has slowly, without even, without even trying. I shouldn't say without even trying, but the global side of things is already in play.
Yeah, it's
You
inevitable.
can see that with the with some of the awesome relationships that we're already starting to generate. Offshore.
100%.
I'm not sure how much of this our opposition's going to listen to. We can cut that bit out.
That's all right. We can say so little that no one ever knows about it.
No, that's true.
I think that's a good segue into kind of how I wanted to wrap up the episode. Is kind of what's your kind of, what are the top 3 things for the future that you would like to see from Bentech, being the general manager now and having a heavy strategic influence and kind of like being able to take ownership in terms of some visionary stuff. Where do you kind of see us in the next 5 years?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Reece. I definitely see us, and this is in no particular order. I definitely see us international, strongly international, and you might say in what areas. I believe there's, without getting into strategic detail too much.
Yep.
There's opportunity in all 3 divisions, and the 3 divisions, ROX, Grizzly, and our general engineer, the Bentech engineering side.
Yep.
I see the 3 brands somewhat, while staying under the umbrella of the Bentech group, somewhat growing, as almost very much separate identities.
Yeah.
They all are very niche in their offering. They all specifically speak to a certain department or area or need on a mine site, even though we've kept true to that, making maintenance on site safe, efficient, and easy.
Yeah, that's
That is our overarching, kind of, you might say, vision of the group. ROX, Grizzly, and the Bentech engineering group, they meet all of the need really right across a lot of areas of a mine site. There's going to be some really, really big growth. I know that for sure. There's some numbers out there which we often talk about in our big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah, for sure, yep.
And we also, obviously, 3 to 5 years, I can see especially the Bentech engineering group really growing in that oil and gas and defence side of things. And while I know we're on the Breaking ROX podcast, it's obviously
we all help each other out.
It's I can see that growing, and that diversification really strengthening the company.
Yep.
And I can see you might say the engineering group definitely moving into some larger, considerably larger, more complex projects, and also, building that professionalism to even service projects overseas. The Breaking ROX side of things, I want to see, without a doubt, you might say, offices, physical sales, or you might say even stock representation in other parts of Australia as well as North America and possibly Africa.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah,
and then, to be honest, wherever ROX goes, Grizzly can follow very, very easily and quickly.
Yep.
In fact, they could do it in conjunction with each other.
100%.
Because wherever you sell ROX, you can sell Grizzly. And the ability and the size of the products gives us the ability to obviously build fast, manufacture fast, and deliver almost in the same containers, if that's in the same logistics kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Engineering's a bit different because of the complexity and you might say the need to travel to scope projects, which is something that we're doing anyway. We've done Indonesia, we're doing Mongolia. At the end of this month, going to one of the world's largest copper mines in Mongolia to scope up a heap of work. But that's covering, interestingly, that there's a discussion across the 3 brands again there. We've had some great stuff out of Africa. We're getting some good work out of Egypt at the moment.
Yep.
And there's a lot of interest in North America. So definitely global is where it's got to be at for sure.
Love it.
Exciting. I can't wait for it. That's it's exciting to be amongst that from the marketing point of view as well. I mean, we're the coalface of a lot of the appetite for what we do abroad.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think it's going to be exciting to see where we go over the next 5 years. The new people we bring on board, we're always bringing on new people.
Yeah.
I think that's really exciting as well. We've hired some absolute gems over the last 6 months.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, I think that's a good way to wrap up the episode. We've had an awesome discussion, quite insightful from my point of view as well. Thank you for coming on board. Thank you for coming on board.
It's been great. This is it's really, really cool. Been watching some of the podcasts and really impressed and this has been good fun.
Yeah, no, it is a bit of fun.
It
is. I love doing it, and I think the more viewership we can get and all that, it's going to be great to see where it goes.
Yeah, I think so.
Where the podcast can go and all of our video production can go in the next 5 years too.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks again, KD.
No dramas, boys.
Thanks,
Cheers.
Maren.
Thank you.
We'll wrap up there, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. Please like the podcast, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave comments if you will. But yeah, until next time. Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.